Welcome to another episode of the Fill Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Bree Brown, along with Amanda Kae, and we're here to talk to you about all things foot zoning. Let's jump into our next episode. All right, friends, for this episode, we are going to answer the question of how often should you get a foot zone? And this one is a unique question for sure because it varies depending on the person and the foot zoner and how stressful life is. And so we have a couple thoughts on that, don't we, Madge?
You know what? We sure do. We have several thoughts, but I will say Bree has an amazing explanation on this. So I'm gonna let her take this one and hit the ground running, and I will fill in the blanks right there because as she was explaining to me, I was like, I need my pencil. I need to write this down. It's amazing. So here we go. Let's do it.
Well, it's not that profound, other than I just noticed. Thank you for that.
It's profound. I do feel like it's profound.
I just noticed I was attracting like these three different type of clients. I see the clients who are actively addressing something, like I am seeing them for fertility or depression or health issues, and they need to get zoned about once a week to every 3 weeks. So 1 to 3 weeks is with how often they need to get zoned. And it helps them to maintain that balance because their bodies are in more of a state of stress and fight or flight and all this different stuff. And so think about that scale. Every time we reset the scale and they come back to balance, if life and health are pulling against them, they're going to come out of balance again at some point, right? And so the people who are actively wanting to address something, about 1 to 3 weeks.
Okay. So before you move on, I just have a quick question on that. So you did say people that may have a health condition or maybe some chronic or something like that. What are your thoughts on people that have cancer, a type of a cancer after, and maybe those even that are taking we all know like with after a radiation treatment or a chemo treatment, there's that waiting period. But what would you even suggest if they're taking that chemo pill as well? Because that's kind of a big deal, right?
It is. Now, if we're going back to the scale analogy and every time they get zoned, that scale resets, that chemotherapy and all the different stuff that they're doing for their cancer treatments, that is going to throw that scale out of balance very quickly, very, very quickly. So depending on the person, you can get zoned more often than once a week. You just have to shorten the time and adjust so that they're not going to be a full reset each time. Because when their bodies are that stressed, they can't handle much more, and they'll start to notice that the zones tend to be more just physical, superficial. But what happens is when they get zoned is it helps the medication work better. It helps everything to work better and more effectively. And so you can get zoned as often as you want, just maybe not as much stuff will release. Does that make sense? So as long as you're doing shorter, faster, lighter, I would say more is better. More is better when someone is actively going through treatment.
Right. When you're saying that, it makes me just feel like those that are going through the chronic illnesses and things like that, it makes me just think they could take that deep breath of, okay, I've got this, I can keep pushing forward.
Well, and it's obviously in a very emotionally charged thing, and so it helps to process the emotions as well, while helping the body to fight the best it can. So
beautiful.
Chronic conditions like that, it's great for that. I mean, even things like diabetes, things like that, just to help keep everything more level. There's nothing wrong with that.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Then
number 2.
The next type of person is someone who is kind of more your average Joe. They have tools to maintain their balance, whether it's meditations or walk or nutrition or exercise or whatever it is, right? And I would say that they can go anywhere from 3 weeks to 12 weeks. So there's a big leeway there. And it really depends on a couple factors: how stressful their life is and their coping mechanisms. And are they, and I guess also, does their body work with them or against them, right? Because then we're kind of more borderline chronic condition stuff. So that's going to be my average person. And I will say it is helpful for people to, I tell them this and then I say, notice how you feel. Let's set up something for maybe 6 weeks. But notice if at 4 weeks you need something, like if you're like, yeah, I would like a zone sooner. Or if at 6 weeks you're like, I can push this out 2 more weeks and I can help them to adjust it depending on how they're feeling.
Beautiful. Okay. I
Then
love
our
that.
last type of person that tends to show up is, and I don't mean this mean by any means, but it's the people who only come to us when they're a train wreck. And that's okay. There is no
Hmm.
fault or judgment. Please come. If you have gone off the rails and life has exploded or imploded, like come get zoned. And I may only see these type of clients maybe once a year,
Hmm.
but I love that they know they can come and have a safe place. And it may take them 2 to 3 zones to get back on track, right? To get the train running again, get on track. But I would rather them come than not come. And the funny thing that they almost always tell me is I should have come sooner. And I always at that moment I'm like, but you are here now. And I'm so
Correct.
glad you're here because there's no reason to shame them for that of just being like, it's okay, you're doing the best you can. I'm just so grateful that you came.
Yes. Yes. It is interesting, um, exactly, because as she's talking about this, and Bree's going over these things, I'm is so well put because I know that because I have a practice, right? And
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
I know that and I feel that, but just the way that just kind of categorize that just made it go, oh, that's exactly. And I think you answered the question perfectly, not only for clients but also for the practitioners in
Yeah.
and how they can say that to their clients, right?
Yeah.
Because you are exactly right, they do know when they're starting to veer off and they need to come back in. Sometimes people do, like you said, they wait a little bit too long, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh crap, I gotta come in, right? But you do notice a big difference, and you do know it's all about listening to your bodies, my friends.
It
It's
is.
all about listening to the body.
And I will also remind them of just saying, right now you're balanced, you're doing good. The longer you can listen to your body, the longer this can maintain. That being said, sometimes we forget that we aren't doing the best we could, and so ideally, consistent coming is going to be best. But if nothing else, when you think about your foot zoner, text them. Like that's the body just being like, hey, remember we could be doing a little bit better. And I just give them permission of just saying, like, when you think about me, text me. Or when you just think, I wonder how Bree's
Yes.
doing, or I wonder how this Mandy's doing with this. And it's like, that's your body, that's your energy telling you it's time to get zoned.
I love that. Thank you, Bree.
Of
Thank you so
course.
much.
I love these fun little questions. So it's so fun. Okay. I think we're good for our next one.
Let's do it.